If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson cries for every dime.
Welcome to Simply the Law, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Simply the Law provides free legal advice and encourages happiness and quality of life. Now, here's Simply the Law with Gary C. Johnson. Hello, everyone. Welcome into Simply the Law. I'm Keith Casebolt, my friend and host of the program, Gary C. Johnson.
Hey, guys and gals, how you doing? Did y'all have a good week? Having a good evening? You got somebody there with you watching this program, I hope. And if you do, look over at them and say, "Ooh, I'm so glad you're here, so I won't be alone." Okay? Do that, just for me. Because I had a case last week I was working on, and this person was alone. And it was just broke my heart to see how they were trying to survive. It's almost like being in solitary confinement when you have nobody. So whatever you have to do and put up with, it's worth it to not be alone. So appreciate the people around you, appreciate your family, appreciate your spouse, appreciate your children. Just appreciate everybody, because it won't hurt a thing and it'll make you feel better. Okay?
Gary, you're so right. I had to go on a business trip one time to a beautiful place, but I didn't have family with me. I didn't have any friends with me. It doesn't matter if you see the most spectacular thing in the world. If you don't have a friend to look over and say, "Gary, look at that." I mean, you can see anything, and if you don't have someone to share it with, you don't get the enjoyment out of it.
You're traveling and you see something, right? You have family back home, spouse, whatever. What's the first thing you do? You grab a phone and call them and tell them about it and share it with them.
Yeah, there you go.
Otherwise, it's meaningless. So that is so important that you have someone in your life, if you can. And if you have someone in your life, it is so important that you appreciate them. Look at them and say, "Thank God you're with me, and thank God you're here," because it's that important. And never, ever criticize, condemn, and complain about it. Now, I was in a place last week where someone had cooked this food, and the husband of the person that cooked the food commented on one of the dishes didn't taste good. And I wanted to choke him. And if any of you do that, if someone goes to the trouble to fix you something to eat, please don't ever be small enough to complain about the quality of it. Now, how stupid could you be? Because they're not going to want to fix you anything else. Okay? I'm just pointing that out to you.
I got to tell a friend, I know I've said this before, but Gary and I were having lunch one day at a restaurant, and the lady came up that was waiting on us, and Gary said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And she said, "What for, sir?" And Gary said, "I've got to sit here. I didn't have to move. I didn't have to get my drink. I didn't have to get my food. I didn't even have to get my napkin. Thank you, thank you, thank you." And this lady appreciated that thank you so much. She stood at our table and she told Gary how proud she was of her job, how important it was to her, what she was doing for her family. It was a sincere thank you from you, but boy, she really appreciated it.
Well, how many times have I said on this program that every job, in my opinion, is equally important? And I learned that over the years by doing most of those jobs. When I was in school, actually in high school, I cut mining timbers, plowed with a mule, literally, to people's gardens to try to raise some money. Picked a lot of blackberries up in the head of that holler and hauled them out to the main road, and hopefully people would stop and pay me a nickel for some of them. Some of you know what I'm talking about. You've lived it. You've been there. When I was 17, I went to Detroit, Lower Huron Metropolitan Park, and I applied for a summer job, and I got it. And during that summer job, I got to clean the restrooms in the park. I got to be on a garbage truck. I got to mow every day, huge mowing, because it's a huge park. And I learned how important those people were that I was working with, and what wonderful people they were. And you learn by doing that. Now, anyone that's never had any of those experiences like that, how can they relate to the real people in the world?
Yeah, I was going to say, not only did you learn, but from what I hear from you, you got a respect. You picked up a respect for hard work, and you picked up a respect for the women and men that do the hard work because you did those jobs. So you have that respect for them.
And honestly, because of the camaraderie and the people there that I work with, those jobs weren't that big a deal. You know, they were doing it, I was doing it. Didn't think anything about it. Now, some people would snarl their nose and say, I would never go do that. Well, you're poor enough, you will. And you know what? You'll meet some mighty wonderful people when you do. That's the bottom line of it. Because everybody that's doing a job, in my opinion, is worthy. Extremely worthy. Because if those jobs weren't done, we would not have a society.
Gary,
nothing would happen.
Does that drive you even more in your practice of law when you see somebody that walks through your door and here they're doing a tough job, a hard job that many people won't sign up for, and then somebody has run over them or a hospital has done them wrong or something like that? Is that what fires you up to go after all the money for them?
There's never, if someone's seriously injured, there's never enough money. Never. Because what was taken from that person is priceless. That's my opinion. People may disagree with me. I did a focus group one time on a case, and they were talking about a case that people were, one of them was about some people had been in a bad wreck and had got some money out of it. And this person in the focus group said, well, they even got them a house out of it with a garage. As though that was bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they should have had a mansion as bad as they got hurt, but just an example of how, I don't even know why I shared that with you folks. Just thought you might find it interesting.
Well, unfortunately, because sometimes people don't have a respect. I mean, that's the whole thing that you're talking about. You have gone on the radio program and said time and time again, when you stop at the gas station in the morning to get your biscuit or get your gas, please say thank you to the person who's standing back there behind that counter. You're trying to tell people we need to respect the men and women that do the tough jobs in America.
Some of you probably do those jobs. Thank you on behalf of everyone that should be thanking you, if you do, because you are essential. You're more important than the lawyers or the accountants. You really are, because what you're doing is so much more important. Don't ever let anybody put you down or make you feel you're not doing an important service to all of us, because you are. You're important. Very, very important. And if you're out here working, in my opinion, you're a VIP. No question about it. Understand that, believe it, and know it in your heart. And go with pride and put those shoulders back and say, I'm important. And do it. and be that way. Let's take a break, come back, I'm gonna talk to you some stuff on the computer.
Hey, thanks for tuning in tonight to Simply the Law. As Gary and I say time and time again, we really do appreciate you taking the time to watch this program. Stay with us. Gary C. Johnson comes back right after you see this.
The other day, one of my friends called me and said, Gary, I was in a bad wreck and you didn't call me. And I had to explain. No lawyer, even me, can call a person that's been in a wreck and ask them for their case. It is illegal. I want to represent you, but I'm not the one that can make that first call. It must be you. It's easy, call pound hurt. I'm here, I want to represent you.
Welcome back into Simply the Law. The opening that you just did, if people will understand what you're saying and buy into it, I promise you will become so much more thankful for the people that provide services, the Uber driver, the cab driver that gets you from destination A to point B without wrecking you, the individuals that take care of you, anybody that you come in contact with that does a service, you will find yourself being very thankful for it.
I promise you that if you buy into what I just said, that it will immensely enhance your happiness. Your happiness. There's something in it for you, and it's that sense of satisfaction of knowing you're doing the right thing.
And you know, Gary, back to, I think last week we talked about where you went to the West Coast and I went to Florida and we found good people. I asked you this question off the radio. I said, Gary, were the good people always there? Was it me that changed? Have I picked up on this being respectful for people that I started seeing it more? And you said, Keith, more than likely, yes.
Bottom line is, Keith, you bought into what we're talking about.
100%.
Tell the folks and just share with them just for a second the change it's made in your life.
What I told Gary is when I came back, all of the things that I took for granted or I didn't notice or I didn't pay attention to, then suddenly I did. And when I came back from this trip, I was raving about the good people that I met, all of the people that I talked to, the people that I encountered. And everyone seemed to have the greatest attitude and they were smiling. And Gary started kind of smiling at me and he said, well, you must have been smiling first. And that's when it dawned on me, wait a minute, maybe all these people were that way from the whole time. The change had to come within me in order to see the goodness that was out there.
In order to have happiness, and to have happiness around you, it's just like when you're in the airplane and they say the mask is going to come down. But first, before you try to put the mask on anyone else, you put it on yourself. Well, what I'm talking about on happiness and how you feel, you first have to start with yourself. You can never make anyone else happy. That's not your job. But you can make yourself happy, and it will be contagious and other people will catch it. But first, you have to put the mask on, number one. Okay, let's go to the computer. I want to talk to you about some stuff. There's our phone number if any of you need to reach us. Website. Again, make sure you have the underinsurance, UNDER, that protects you and your family. Now, we talk about defenses and cases and someone's run over someone. And what are the defenses that you normally run into? The first one is they say, well, we can't deal with your case, the insurance company does, until you're at maximum medical improvement. Well, all that is because if you have a permanent injury, you will never get a maximum medical improvement. It's a way to delay. That's all it is. Now, what are the other defenses? They're not hurt. After all, it's just a whiplash. And we had a program on whiplash.
We did.
Or you already had that wrong with you. It was a pre-existing condition.
So now that's a great point. We talked last week about whiplash. I sit here with you. I told about my wreck and my whiplash and everything. So I had people come to me and say, why did you do that? Now, if you're ever in an accident, they're going to say, you already had neck problems. You already had back problems. You were already in pain. Mm-hmm. That's going to be used against you.
Yep. And you put it on the air.
And I went ahead and told everybody.
It's okay, because there's light at the end of the tunnel if our friends understand the law. And that's what we're here for. It is simply the law, right? Let's go back to the computer. Believe it or not, the defendant or the person that runs over you are responsible for any harm that's caused to you. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's go to Webster's New World Dictionary and look up preexisting. Preexist is to exist previously or before. Condition is a state of being, an illness, a healthy state. This is right out of it. So if it's a pre-existing condition that you have, that they're going to say that you already had wrong with you, that the wreck didn't cause, okay? Now, illness is the condition of being in poor health, sickness, or disease. Aggravate is to make worse. Now, we've established what a pre-existing condition is. Now we're talking about aggravating it to make it worse, right? The law says that you take a plaintiff as is. In other words, Keith, if someone runs over you, they take you in the exact condition you're in. If they aggravate that condition and make it worse, they are still responsible for what they did to you.
See, Gary, I love your explanation of this, and Gary has told me for 20 years, son, when nothing else works, the truth will always work. The truth is, you've got a pre-existing condition, but if I can function and I can do certain things and I can live with it, if you take that away from me, you've done the damage to me.
And if you'll notice, when we used last week the Mayo Clinic program on where I did the things for Mayo Clinic on Whiplash, one of the things that it said that would make you at high risk for having a severe whiplash that would never get better is if you had a pre-existing low back or neck problems before the wreck ever happened. In other words, you're much more susceptible to being severely injured if you have a pre-existing condition. Now, here's the catch to it, folks. And here's the sad part about it. Every one of you that's over 60 have a pre-existing condition in your neck and back. It's called a degenerative disc disease. You take an MRI of your back or your neck, and it will show problems that are already there that are pre-existing. Now, you may not be hurting from it. You may not have any pain from it. You may not even know you got it, but it's there. Therefore, if you got right down to it, anyone that got hurt over 60, if pre-existing conditions was a defense, would never be able to recover, would they? Right? The bottom line is, if you're over 60 and you're in a wreck, you're far more susceptible to having a permanent injury to your neck or back from the aggravation of your pre-existing degenerative disc disease that you already have. Let's take a break. We'll come right back to the computer.
Basically, Mother Nature takes a toll on us, and it does have a major impact. Stay with us. Gary C. Johnson and Simply the Law right after this.
I'm Gary C. Johnson. I saw a commercial from a large law firm where they said, we took 3 million calls last year. Woo-wee. You may want to give us a call at Pound Hurt, where instead of being one of 3 million, you will be treated as one of a kind. Pound Hurt. We're ready to represent you. Give us a call on your cell phone, Pound Hurt.
Welcome back into Simply the Law. Gary, I was thinking during that break, the great golfers, Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, as they got older, they had less mobility. They couldn't hit the ball as far. Mother Nature took over with stiffness. They had joint problems. Everything you're just explaining is a fact of life that happens to all of us, not just elite athletes.
And when you get older, you're far more susceptible to being injured in a minor impact. I had a client a few years ago that was in a car and got bumped. Literally, at a red light, got bumped by a truck. The only problem was he was 75 years old. It caused him to start having bleeding in the brain because he was so susceptible because of his age. Ended up having emergency brain surgery from just a bump and sitting at a red light.
I had an old friend the other day that explained it to me. He said, Casebolt, you and I have lost our bounce. And I said, our bounce? He said, yeah, remember how you used to fall down and you'd bounce right back up? He said, we're at the age now, if we fall, there's no bounce.
Let's go back to the computer. I got some stuff I want to cover with you guys. Okay, now there are several different types of things that are pre-existing conditions that if they're aggravated, you can recover for. The plaintiff suffers from a condition controlled by treatment. An example, migraine headaches that were now made uncontrollable by a head injury. Okay? The plaintiff suffers from a condition uncontrolled by treatment, but made worse, an aggravation. That is from crutches to a wheelchair as an example. The plaintiff suffers from a condition that will inevitably incapacitate him that is expedited by the injury. In other words, it accelerates it and speeds it up when they become incapacitated. So you got a hidden condition, reactivated condition, aggravated condition, the expedited condition. If you have any of those and you're injured, then you have a right to recover for what happened to you. Okay?
But now, Gary, the defense is going to come out. You've told us why we should recover. You've told us how we can recover. But here's what the defense is going to come out. They're going to come out and say, wait a minute, you already had this problem. You're telling a big fib or a lie. You don't deserve anything. They're going to demonize you and act like you're one of those people trying to get something for nothing.
If you're in a wreck and you're involved in a lawsuit and you have an attorney, I'm going to give you a little bit of advice. Tell the truth. The pre-existing conditions will not hurt your case. They are responsible for what they did to you, even though you had problems before. Those problems probably made what they did to you a whole lot worse than they would have otherwise. But they're responsible for that. Now, your first instinct is going to be, well, I can't tell them about these back problems I had, or I can't tell them about these neck problems I had. Because you know how bad you're hurt, and you want to make sure that everybody knows it. Well, my friends, the worst thing you can do, and you can kill your case, by not telling about the prior problems you had. Because guess what? The defense has all your medical records. They have all the medical records where you had treatment for those prior conditions. And if you go into that deposition and try to pretend you didn't have those things wrong with you, then you are a liar. And guess what a jury will do with a liar? Boom. And they should.
But you know what, Gary? I see that so easy right now. Good people who were afraid to mention that they had pain because now the pain's a lot worse and they're thinking they don't want to hurt their case, and yet they're good people and yet they've denied having the pain and it comes back and it kills the case.
Well, you never forget that desperate people do desperate things. And people that have been severely injured in a wreck, even though they have pre-existing conditions, are desperate. They're as desperate as a human being can ever be. And I'm saying to you, if you're one of those, don't let your desperation dictate what you do. Don't try to hide from your pre-existing conditions. Don't try to minimize them. Don't try to make them less than what they were. They take you as is, and they are responsible for the harm they did to you. Don't fall into their trap, and they will try. They will ask you if you ever had a back problem. When they got a medical record right in front of them that says you did. Now, why do they need to ask you that question if they've got a medical record and they already know it? They're praying you'll say no.
Gary, what factor does time play into that? You mentioned how they make things wait out on you. So they've got the client under this, they're waiting, they're desperate, they're under this time, and they're sitting back just hoping you make a mistake?
They plan on you making a mistake. They plan on you exaggerating your symptoms. They plan on you being desperate and doing things that desperate people do. And then they use it to do this to you. Just tell the truth. It is amazing how powerful the truth is. And it is amazing how easy the jury in your case will accept the truth. But if they suspect you're lying, then you will be categorized as one of those people that's trying to get something for nothing. And they will diminish your recovery dramatically. Just tell the truth. But don't try to hide pre-existing conditions. They're in your medical records. Don't do it.
Great advice. Great advice, my friend. I mean, really good information. And what Gary's saying, tell the truth, trust Gary C. to do the right thing, and everything will be okay in the end. Listen, thank you so much again for taking this time to tune in to Simply the Law. Gary and I really do appreciate it. And as always, Gary and I look forward to seeing you again next week, right here at this same time.
Thank you for watching Simply the Law, a program created by Gary C. Johnson. Until next week, may you be safe, blessed, and happy.
If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson cries for every dime.